Hey guys, it's Joe. I had a request for the Ghostrick's deck profile, so I decided I'd give you the most competitive build I could possibly make with just Ghostricks, and as you can see, the one tech, Dark Armed. So basically, the entire concept of this build itself is to keep as much control as you can on your opponent while dealing the most amount of damage. The one Dark Armed is because you have with the recurrings, with your Alucard and your Duelahan, getting all those things back from your grave, you have a level of graveyard control that allows you to not have to worry about whether or not you can make Dark Armed. Especially if you get him first turn, you draw your hand and he's there. Second turn you draw him. Third turn, even late game, if you haven't used your recurrings or you still have an Alucard or a Duelahan, you can make the Dark Armed as long as you can manipulate the grave. There are a lot of 2-ofs you will find out, like 2 Stein, 2 Mummy. That's simply because you need to make enough room for everything in here, and the control part of it happens to be with Doll, the 2 Witches, the 2 Swords, the 2 Scares, the Go-Round, the Knight, the Needle Ceilings. All of that stuff is to make sure your opponent can't do what they want to do, and even if they make their play, they can't do anything after. Say they spam the board, and you have even one Ghostrick monster. You can either stop the play, or you can set the big monster that they just made, or you can set their key card. It all depends on how you play. But anyway, let's get into it. We have one Dark Armed because you have the graveyard manipulation to do so. You have the 2 Steins because if you do any sort of damage, even if they say reduce the damage to 0, it's 0 damage. He still does damage. He still gets the Spell or Trap Search. 2 Mummy because who doesn't love normaling again? Because it's a normal and not a special that gets around a lot of heavy meta cards, i.e. Vanity's Emptiness, i.e. etc, etc. Because Mummy says normal instead of special, you can go into, if you have him and a ghoul, you can have a 26 beater that you just swing into whatever you want turn 2. Moving on, you have 2 ghoul because Sirocco in Ghostricks. For those of you who don't know, Ghoul, basically, all of the attacks of the Ghostricks on field, you can put it on one monster. Say you have him, a Mummy, and a Stein, and you target the Stein. He's going to gain the 15 and the 11, boosting him up to 42. 4,200. This deck that used to be about poking is now going to smash you in the face with 4,200. That, and so you have a Dark Armed on field, another 28 if you don't have the field spell, plus Dark Arm's removal, makes for insane plays. Anyway, you have 2 Jiangshi because you like to search, and really you only need Jiangshi early to mid-game. Like, that in-between is a sweet spot where you want to find him because he'll search out all of your hand traps, all of the monsters you can't draw into, and he's the 18 butt that turn 1, if they swing into it with a 1500 monster, they take that initial damage and you get a search. Entering the control, you have 2 Witches because the most amazing thing about this card is it's not this one card once per turn, it's just once per turn for each copy of her. So if you have 2 of her on field, you can use both of their effects to set, essentially setting 2 of your opponent's monsters. That puts a level of control, as well as Doll. Doll makes this deck run so hard, so far, nothing ever... Anyway, I only play the Doll at 1, simply because 2 seems a little cloggy for the assault engine that you're playing. You want to beat into them as much as possible, and having everything set doesn't get that to work. So I play the 1 because at the end of phase you get the special of your choosing, as long as it's like her and one other thing, you get a witch. Her and two other things, you get a Stein. And it's any card, it's any monster on the field. So if your opponent has a full board, they swing into her, end phase, they get everything set, you special a mummy face down. Next turn you go off. Plus it's just nice to have something that specials from deck. Not a lot of things in this do that, and it's amazing. 2 Frost, we're getting into the hand traps. Excuse me. 2 Frost, because if they ever manage to attack you directly, it's more control, setting their monsters. It's also a hand trap, and gives you field presence. 3 dangerous things. Field presence, setting their monster, and it's a hand trap. 3 Lantern, because if they attack direct or they attack a face-up Ghostrick, you say no. And you establish field presence. Because of such a heavy monster lineup, 22 monsters, keep in mind. We play 3 Spectre, because at any point in time it dies, or, a Ghostrick dies. Special it, draw a card. Keep field presence. Draw engine. Draw into what you need quicker. Deck thinning. It makes the deck run even more so than it already does. 2 Mary, because in a pinch, say it's late game and they manage to do like 2k to your 5 life, throw this out, special a Zhangxi, or special a mummy, or special ghoul, or special a doll, or special anything that you need to from deck. If they manage to do some sort of effect damage, same rule applies. And the reason you run 2 is because 3 is cloggy. Again, this is personal preference. I forgot to say this in the beginning. But this is all my personal preference and the most offensive competitive deck that I've been able to build. So keep that in mind. 2 Recurring, because although you have the ability to get that you have 4 targets, 3 is a little cloggy, and you're going to be siding it out game 2 or game 3 anyway, depending on what your side deck is, whatever you're doing the meta. But you have 4 targets. You have Mummy, Stein, Mummy, Lantern, and Spectre. All can get targeted by this card. So it makes the graveyard manipulation even more so. 2 MST, because you don't really need all that much back row removal. You'll find out later in the traps. As well as you have 3 Alucard. You can see that. But you run Alucard, so any set cards they have get destroyed, and anything that they have face up, you can hit with this. Anyway, you have 2 Swords of Concealing, again, for that control, and that stall. Say you can't get your control part of the deck running, or you can't get that assault part running, but you have this. Set all their monsters. They can't change the battle positions until your second standby. Meaning, they can't really do much. The monsters they have set can't really. They're struggling. 2 House, because 3 is cloggy, and even though it's a good card, with Ghoul, you don't necessarily need it anymore. You don't need it as 3 of, because this allows you to poke directly. But with Ghoul, you can beef up your monsters and swing into theirs without having to worry as much. It's a short 8 spell lineup, but it gets the job done. Traps has 2 Needle Sealing, because you'll side the 3rd one in game 2, let's be honest. And there are a lot of spammy decks out right now in the current meta, at least that I know of. And once they get their plays going, right before they make their big play, if you hit this, or if you do this at the beginning of their play to stop it, they can't really come back from it, and it'll force them to wait at least one more turn to get their stuff off again. 2 Ghostrick out. I'm sorry, Ghostrick Vanish. The names are weird on here. Because you do not want to have any fear. If you Ghostrick Ghoul, beef up anything, and you activate this, you have no fear of anything whatsoever. Because it can't be targeted or destroyed, and none of your face downs either. The only thing that really gets around this is things that don't target, i.e., I think it's a new card that came out, like it's a different type of Mirror Force. But this stops a lot of things. This stops Lance. This stops Compulse, Deprison, Bottom. You can do this before you make your big plays and get so much off. It's amazing. 2 Ghostrick break because 3 is cloggy. Even if you have a big monster count, you're not going to have the grave presence necessary to run 3 and be successful with it. Basically, when a Ghostrick dies, you can special 2 Ghostricks with different names from your grave onto the field face down defense. Comboing this with Spectre, you can chain Spectre's effect to this. So you activate this, say they killed your ghoul, but you have a Stein, Mummy, and Grave. You can activate this, chain Spectre, special Spectre, get the draw, special the other 2. You have now tripled your field presence, gained a draw, thinned out your deck, and probably intimidated your opponent a little. We run 2 Ghostrick Panic because you'll side the 3rd one in second game, and it's that level of control that really, really hits hard. Because all their Xyz, all their Synchros, all their big beefy... Because this doesn't target them. This only targets you. And that's the great thing about most of these cards, is they don't target your opponent's monsters, so the effects that say this card can't be targeted, or cards they activate that say monsters can't be targeted, don't have any effect. It only targets the monsters you control. So setting all their monsters early or late game is just the key to victory. 1 Ghostrick go-round, because you'll probably side in the second one game too if you have that second one sided, unless you're maining it. But it's also in that cinch, in that battle phase where all you have is a set doll, and they have a field of 5. You can activate this in the battle phase when they declare their attack. Flip the doll, set the attacking monster. Her effect will go off. If you have the field spell, you can take all the damage you want, unless their monsters are obviously like 5k. And not really have to worry about it, because at the end phase, they're setting, you get the field presence again, you get the special, it's whatever. And you can use this on your turn as well, to an advantage, because it's once per turn during the battle phase. Not yours, not theirs, the. And again, this only targets your monsters. So, say it's your turn, you enter battle phase, but all you have is set monsters and they have 1 face up. Flip yours, set theirs, attack direct, etc. And then the last control variant of this main deck is Ghostrick Knight, which is while you control a Ghostrick monster, obviously face up, your opponent can't flip summon monsters. Meaning if you swords, or if you scare, or if you go around and this is up, and you have like an Alucard, you have a Doulahan, you have any Ghostrick monster period, those monsters aren't going up. The second part of this is even more amazing. If they do manage to get rid of it, MST it, blow it up, whatever, they can't attack the turn they do it. So if they do it on their turn, they waste resources and can't attack. Moving on to the extra deck, we have 2 Downed Magician, because you have a lot of rank 3s, 1s. The only 4s is her, and then the 3 Spoiled Angel you're running. So it's easy to make, and it does the piercing, as well as you can get the detach off. And the 200 boost. If you make this first, second turn, and your opponent doesn't have anything really offensive to do over it, you get the advantage really early. 3 Ghostrick Angel of Mischief, Spoiled Angel, whatever the hell her name is right now. Because you have 3 Alucard and 3 Doulahan, which is 6 targets. That's, 2 for each one. And essentially, if you use up all of Alucard's Xyz and make her, detach the Alucard, search your deck for the card, the spell or trap that you wanted, and then Alucard's effect activates in Grave, because he was sent to Grave, and you get the search in Grave. Moving on, 3 Alucard, 3 Doulahan, that's almost staple, obviously back row removal, and this comboed with your Ghoul. Say you have a Ghoul and a Witch, you make a 23, but you also have a Doulahan, like you make the Doulahan after, and you just sit on it. They have to get something that is 46 in order to get over that beefy Witch or Ghoul, and if they swing into him, well, you can just half it anyway. It's really the tide-turning thing in most battles. 2 Slacker Magician, because early game, if you don't really have anything other than a Spectre and Frost on field, you can either make the Doulahan, or you can make this and sit on it, and have all of your other monsters face down with the field spell, and this is the only thing they can target. They have to hit it twice to get rid of it. It's just a decent card. And then one of my newest favorite cards is number 54, Lionheart. It's a little pricey. It costs 3 level 1 monsters, but it can't be destroyed by battle. When you take damage from this card, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the damage you took. And if it battles an opponent's monster, you can detach, and it's a magic cylinder. Your opponent takes any damage you would have taken from that battle. So essentially, if they swing at it with a 2k monster, they're taking, I believe, 39. Because they take the damage you would have taken, and his first effect goes off, so they take damage equal to what you take. Moving on to the side deck. This is the side deck I made personally for this, just because I wanted to be the trolliest I possibly could, and to irritate someone as much as possible. Make your side deck however you want. This is my personal preference. Okay. Ghostrick Mill is the funnest thing in the world. 3 skeleton. If you don't know what he does, flip him face up. For every number of Ghostrick monsters you control, you can banish face down from the top of their deck that number of. Say you have a full field, you flip him, banish 5 face. They can't look at it. You know how intimidating that is? You know how nerve-wracking that can be mid to late game, in game 2, where they don't know if their side deck cards are in the banish pile or not? That stops most of their plays because they're too afraid to do anything because they don't know what resources they have anymore. It becomes a guessing game for them, and everything is so thought out and overthought and meticulous. It's amazing. One more Jiangshi because you need all the defense you can and all the search you can. 2 extra doll because you want to special out your skeletons and your mummies and your anything really in order to get this to go off even more. The 3rd Frost because you need as much stall and field presence as possible. 1 day because it's a draw, so it means they draw, which deck thins them out. Plus, until the end of your opponent's next turn, they can't do any damage anyway, so you're not really in any danger. Ghostrick Parade. This card is underrated, honestly. I didn't like it at first because I read it and went, what am I going to do with this? Until you realize what it's for. Ghostrick Mill. Because when they declare an attack, you get a search. After the search, the attack happens, but the card you searched out, say you searched out a Lantern or a Frost, can be used for the attack. It's amazing. I don't know what else to tell you. Anyway. The 3rd Needle Ceiling because you want to make sure they don't have anything to really poke it, hit you hard while you're milling them out. The 3rd Scare because flipping everything. Here, let me flip my skeleton. Do the 5. Set him. Your turn. Flip the skeleton. Mill the 5. 2 turns, there's a 4th of their deck gone. And you run 3? Are you kidding me? The 2nd Roll Switch for the neeners, this, that. And it's really cheeky because you can flip it up. Say you flip the doll, they have to retarget if they have another face up, and then you can Lantern, etc. And the other Knight because you don't want them doing anything at all attack-wise. So having all their monsters set, and if they destroy it, they can't attack. You're making them waste as many resources as possible. Anyway, this is my 1 most competitive and 2 most trolly. The reason I find it more competitive than the other Ghostrick builds I used to play, 1, the Dad. The Dad makes all the difference in the world because it adds a level of removal. The Ghoul to add the level of beef, that buff, that boost. I'll say it every other different way. The level of control, the level of field presence, the level of recyclability with your Ghostrick Break and your recurring. Game 2, they're going to be expecting all of this again, so you side out, you know, your one ghoul, one mummy, one stein, the dad, side out the Ghostrick vanishes because you're not going to be attacking. You know, side in all of your Ghostrick meal or whatever you're siding in game 2. And then game 3 is probably going to be the hardest because they're going to side for what you sided for anyway. So you can switch it back to mess with them again. You can side in half. You can side in even more anti-meta or anti-meta, you know, whatever. But this is it in a nutshell. This is the most competitive thing I've found as of currently. I can't really say much else for the deck, except I wish there was a Ghostrick with a level 4. Because once they do that, the deck is pretty much complete, and it's the most amazing thing since sliced bread, and it would probably be an OP as shit card. Anyway, this. The video's running a little long, so I'll cut it off here. Like, comment, subscribe, leave anything, like if I said something that wasn't exactly right, or if you have an idea to make it more competitive, etc., etc. Leave it in the comments below. I love your feedback. Anyway, have a good day.